Nerd morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy. This is Joseph.
Hi, everybody.
And this is the Nerd Morning Show, a place where we celebrate nerd culture by talking about books, comics, video games, and much more. And today we're going to be talking about the greatest DC Comics villains of all time. Now, this, as noted at the very beginning, is our lists, and we both actually have yet to really describe to even each other what greatest
What does
means.
greatest mean, right?
Yeah. So what we did is we said, okay, pick 5 of the greatest DC villains and maybe a couple honorable mentions, and then we're going to discuss our lists. And that was what we had set up here. And so you guys listening, watching the video, or listening on the podcast, like, you definitely give us your input. Tell us where we're wrong, tell us where we're right, tell us what your list would be. We'd love to hear your thoughts, because this is just our opinions, and your opinions as well are totally valid, and we'd love to hear your ideas. So put those in the comments. Okay, so let's jump in. Joseph, give me like your idea of greatest villains. Like, where did you take this definition?
It was so hard to be able to say this is number one, the worst, and then go down from there. Because what criteria are you using to
Yeah,
say they're
yeah,
like the greatest baddie, right?
yeah.
So I actually had to kind of break mine down into this is the greatest villain for this category, like this reason. And we'll get
Okay.
into those when we list them out. But yeah. My first honorable mention I want to bring out though is Punchline.
Oh, okay.
New
Interesting.
to the scene, but she not only kind of built up her own name in her own right,
Mm-hmm.
joining Joker, being basically as crazy as he is, battling Harley, but then she totally 360'd on him and is using social media to try and get herself out of it.
Right. Which
So,
is really interesting. A villain who's using technologies where uh back when Joker was invented or things like that,
right?
their social media
It's
didn't
not a
exist. It wasn't a
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Here, this is a modern age, modern era villain. So that's
Yes.
a really interesting take for that. Um, I think that's pretty cool. Um, for me, like, so okay, for my definition, I'm like, who are the most powerful? Who are the villains that have um broken worlds and altered timelines and transformed reality? Like, these aren't,
Valid.
like, I guess I'm
Valid.
going with like powerful.
Uh-huh.
And that doesn't mean greatest could be like coolest, right? Greatest could
Right?
mean,
Greatest at what? We never
yeah,
defined
yeah,
it. So
exactly.
just
Like, that's,
greatest.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I, some things I have, I'll just put out this one as an honorable mention. Reverse Flash. He would be lower on this like totem pole of most powerful cosmic breakers, but he did set up the things like
Okay.
Flashpoint, right?
Right. Yep.
His actions caused Flash's actions, which caused a complete
Just
like split of a timeline,
right.
which transformed like to an apocalyptic reality with Flashpoint. And that's pretty powerful. And him being able to alter the
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
time travel, all of that type of stuff is pretty significant, I think. So he's an honorable mention for me.
Oh yeah. So all this, and he's just an honorable mention. I want to see
Yes,
the rest of your
right.
list.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the scale I'm playing with here.
yeah.
Which,
Okay.
yeah.
Not too far off of that. My second honorable mention is the Injustice Superman. You know,
Oh, I didn't even
Superman.
consider him. Oh,
Oh,
that's fantastic.
he's our greatest hope for
Uh-huh.
humanity, and then evil dictator. right?
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
yes.
So yeah, again, you talked about this. I think it's probably worthwhile noting, like flat for mine, like Punchline, the Joker War, great place to find stuff for her for Punchline.
Yeah.
For flat like Reverse Flash, like a great spot for him is Flashpoint. Like that's
Right.
really good.
Yep.
For this one, obviously the Injustice comics, the Injustice video games. There is an
Yeah.
upcoming movie that is coming out, animated
Right.
film that is going to be releasing here soon, which you can see the Injustice Superman in all of his glory.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that is yeah, that's a really, really interesting. I like that as an honorable mention. Another honorable mention that I had was Mr. How do I even say this? It's so hard. Mitzel Zittelpick. He is an interdimension like elf gremlin being of cosmic ultimate power, and is often a Superman villain, and he's only an honorable mention because he, generally speaking, doesn't actually want to kill Superman, destroy reality, or anything like that. He is a trickster, and so he can go and pretty much rewrite any type of reality. You want Superman and Clark Kent to be two separate beings? Bam! I wave my wand and makes it happen. I want to make it so everyone is now singing and that's all that they can communicate with. Boom, make it happen. I mean, this is tremendous godlike power. And the only reason that he is not the ultimate evil is because he's just trying to like mess around and have fun. Another like friend of him is like Batmite, who loves Batman and is an interdimensional like being gremlin thing of trickster, and who just like loves Batman, and they're like extremely powerful. And like I remember reading a comic where this was a part of the Batman Superman series over the last couple of years. I don't remember exactly what issue, but they're like, Batman's the best. No, Superman's the best. And they essentially created alternate reality to throw them in to have like superpowers and make them like mind warp so they could fight, so they could see who was more awesome, Batman or Superman. And they keep on like changing the rules the whole way through. So Mr. Mixel Zittelpick, it's literally MXYZPTLK. That is how you say his name. And yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So that is an honorable mention for me. Yeah.
All right. Well, my next honorable mention is a little less amazing than our starting ones here. But I picked Starro.
Oh yeah.
Purely for the scare factor. Starfish creature slaps on your face and you are all of a sudden basically a zombie. You're dead at that moment anyways, and but you're serving this larger creature who kind of is like a biological Borg, just trying to take over everything.
Right.
So very freaky. Very
awesome
freaky.
Villain. There are multiple Starros inside of the DC universe. It is essentially a species, and we have one main one that we see as a super villain that we get. There are like the little Starro zombie creators, like the offspring. I don't know how to quite term that. Are sometimes like independent creatures, sometimes like the connective hive mind enablers, right? So it's the same species or same being. There is a side story in part of the Justice League series that was going on about a year ago, where there was a Starro that was a Robin. True story. and
Okay.
he like decided that he wanted to be good and became best buddies with Batman. Batman took him in. Anyways, really
All right.
interesting
Yeah.
side thing, but ultimately, barring Starro Robin, which is amazing that that's even a thing. Starro is totally something to be feared. An awesome villain.
Yeah.
That's so good. I for an honorable mention for me, Parallax, the embodiment of fear itself,
Sure.
often the greatest threat to the universe as seen to the Green Lanterns, who are sometimes, let's be real, short-sighted. But they are, that's one I think is a pretty good one on the list. So I have put that there as an honorable mention.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm ready. I'm just got my next one if you're done.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right. My last one is a little bit more mundane, kind of.
Okay.
I'm throwing in Black Manta, partially because I think he's kind of cool.
Yeah. And
You
the
know?
greatness, cool factor, totally a valid like measuring for
Right?
that. Totally.
You know, if he's one that if it's like, dude, if you just kind of get off of your little revenge shtick here,
Uh-huh.
then you could like be awesome. You know, he'd be in the same league as like Deathstroke, who
Mm-hmm.
or Deadpoint. They're not necessarily evil. They're guns for hire.
Yeah.
You know, they do what they're being paid to do, which is a different kind, totally different level of bad
Uh-huh.
than you know the crazy ones who are doing it for themselves, right?
Yeah.
That could be Black Manta, but he gets stuck on this
Mm-hmm.
I want revenge thing. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah,
but he does
that
it
is
really,
good.
really well.
Right. As kind of a last, I've got like so many here.
We could go for a long
I know,
time.
I know. My last honorable mention though is going to be Crona, and this sets up a lot of the thinking of some of the villains that I have. Crona is a ancient being who tried to understand time, reality, the future, and in trying to pursue this like high level knowledge, it pretty much makes evil, and also by looking through the future, doing all these types of things, creates the multiverse. So he's the thing that started the fissure that spread
The
out to what we
actual,
have, the
uh-huh,
multiverse.
right.
So that's pretty big deal.
Yeah,
And sometimes
yeah.
I think like, though that act itself not necessarily is evil. I mean, he's like supposed to be like the father of evil in the multiverse. But I think
It's
like
what you
everything
do
that
with
he
it.
did,
Yeah,
yeah, everything
right.
that he did really was exploration and that kind of stuff. And yeah, he faced him in the past, but really like it's like he already did the bad thing, and now you're just like confronting him, but he's like not that big of a deal anymore. So that's why he's not on my list. Is because like creating the multiverse is a huge deal.
Right?
That's massive.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's what I'm gonna I have to not include him because yeah,
All right.
he's
All right.
powerful, but yeah.
All right.
So that's my last honorable mention. Oh my gosh, my list though is so huge, and it's how it is. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So I guess you don't really have them in numbers of like 5 through 1, and mine are kind of interchangeable. I could shift my 5 and my 4 and etc. and probably still feel okay with my
Uh,
list.
yeah.
Um,
I've
but
got my most evil number one picked out, so I'll do him last no matter what. But yeah,
yeah.
mine are more
So
categories, but we'll go in an order just to give something structure. So,
totally. So your number 5.
all right. Uh, I picked the most vengeful for my number 5
Okay.
as Eobard Thawne,
Ooh, yeah.
aka the Reverse Flash.
Right, which was an honorable mention for me.
Totally because, like you were saying, he can zip through time. He affects so many things for Flash that it creates different timelines, Flashpoint,
Hmm.
and on and on and on. Well, like, yeah, he's probably the most dedicated to his vengeance. So
Yeah,
he is the most
I
vengeful.
like it. That's really good. Well, again, great place to look for Reverse Flash, Flashpoint. In Flash comics, he's a pretty common occurrence. So if you're reading Flash, you're gonna get some some Reverse Flash
Oh
in
yeah,
there as well. So that's that's awesome. Um, my number 5 is Brainiac.
valid.
Brainiac is
Yeah.
another one of these, again, cosmic level beings. He is seeking to acquire all the knowledge of the universe. And in order to do
Mhm.
that, he's got to stop more knowledge from coming out. And so he's going to collect the information and the knowledge of a planet. Then he's going to collect a city from the planet, encapsulate it, so it's not really growing or progressing, but he's collected it, right? He's a
Uh-huh.
collector of sorts that way. And then he's going to move on and destroy that planet so no progress can be had, so he can have the knowledge of that planet and check it off his list and move on to the next. This is pretty much the basis of this. And this is ridiculous thinking, but I can totally
Right?
see a villain having this type of thought process.
Yeah, it would be very frustrating to gain all that knowledge, move on, and just pass by through again and later and be like, "What? You learned this other huge thing? I
Right?
gotta do it all again."
Yeah.
Right?
So he is collecting worlds, destroying
Oh,
the universe, and all really in the hopes of just like gaining all the information that he can. And it's very backwards.
yeah.
It's
Uh-huh. That's
it's very
uh,
problematic, and he makes a tremendous villain. The Justice League usually has to come together in order to face Brainiac. It's not just a Superman, getting there and taking care of it. And he's been a villain in Injustice 2, the video game there. He
mhm.
has been a villain in Justice League comics, and I think a fantastic, if we were to have more like Justice League universe focused movies, I would be
Mhm.
a good bill for a new major villain for them to have to come together and
Yep.
face.
Yep. That's true.
So
That's
that,
true.
yeah, that's what I'm putting at quote unquote number 5.
Number 5. All right. For my number
So
4, I picked most ruthless,
okay.
and I went with Lex Luthor on this
Ooh,
one.
I love it. Okay.
Because Lex, he's very willing to do whatever it takes to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish his goal.
Yeah.
And something that's fun with the Smallville series is you see him before this,
Mm-hmm.
where he's willing to just play by, well, for Lex Luthor, the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not willing to destroy half of a continent just to achieve his one goal. He's
Yeah.
not there yet. So it's fun
Yeah.
to see him at that point. But later, the Lex Luthor that we know and love from the main story arcs, yeah, in some parts he becomes president.
Uh-huh.
That's just
Yeah. Yeah.
terrifying,
Right.
right? Like, do you know what he has done?
Yeah.
So anyway, he's definitely the most ruthless in my book.
I think that's fantastic. There's a actual Lex Luthor comic book series. It's really interesting. I think it's just called Luthor. And there you get the story kind of told in his point of view, and the artist does a really good job when like Superman appears to make him look really intimidating. And kind of like villain-ish, and that's because it's Lex's point of view, and one
Yeah.
of his things that he sees is that superpowered beings not on my leash are really dangerous, and he
Mhm.
sees that as I am the authority of the world. He's got this in his mind, right?
Right? Yeah.
If I don't control it, it's not in my control, thus it's a problem.
Right.
And he sees he can't necessarily leash Superman, and that
No.
point of view fuels his actions. And so oftentimes he thinks that he's doing the right thing, but he's a big thinker of the ends justify the means.
Yes.
So no matter how I get there, if I accomplish my goal,
We're
it's
good.
worth it.
Right.
And
Yep.
that is a terrifying approach. And I think what makes
Yes.
Lex so scary
His
is
competence.
he's competence and realism. He
Yeah.
is a realistic villain.
Yes.
He is someone that could essentially exist, and some people point at somebody in reality, and I'm not pointing any fingers or justifying this action at either, but there's some people who look at someone and say, they're a Lex Luthor. And it's interesting to see because we don't go and say that about other villains, you know?
Right.
And I think that is one of the things that makes him so great is
it's
that
a
he is so
great
relatable.
character. Oh yeah.
And so he's a big
Could
deal.
be real. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
scary. I don't know. I think that's really interesting.
Oh yes.
So that's a fantastic one on your number 4. On my number 4, again, I'm going cosmic here, and I'm going with the interdimensional, like demon of hell, of an interdimensional hell, Trigon. This is Raven's dad.
Uh-huh.
And he is someone who would love to go and consume and destroy Earth and also the rest of the universe. And
just for kicks.
That's what he does. That's that's his role. And I think that this is interesting because we have this like exploration of like a devil, a powerful being of hate, of destruction, and of everything that is bad. And he's supposed to be able to embody all of those things and does a pretty good job of it. He is both like a tempter of the mind, as well as someone who thinks that if you're doing a bad thing, it serves me, as well as someone who just is out to destroy. So he kind of has those small battles, those like internal battles, as well as those big cosmic fights. And I think that's really interesting and compelling. And I think like a really good place to go and learn or watch about Trigon, though there's a lot of other places, is actually the animated DC film Justice League versus Teen Titans. That one has Trigon as essentially the villain, and it's interesting to see how he can take over beings like say the Justice League, and if you can control characters like that, that's a pretty big deal. And so I find that to be tremendously powerful, and that lands him at my number 4 spot.
Yeah, good one. My number 3, it jumps into those cosmic realms a little bit. I picked Darkseid for the most powerful.
Okay, totally.
Because anyone who can actually confidently stand up to the Man of Steel, there's someone to be a little nervous about.
Right.
So in Darkseid, he thinks again he's doing all these great things for his glorious purpose.
Yeah.
And it happens to involve, destruction wherever he thinks it necessary. So, yeah, if you can stand up to Superman, you've got a good shot at being validated as most powerful. So
yeah. Oh, that's super good. I'm actually going to be putting Darkseid as my number 3. and, and so kind of adding to that is Darkseid's the new god of death, of destruction. And so in the DC comics, we have the old gods, which are people like Zeus and so forth, and we have the new gods, which are these like cosmic deities. And Darkseid is one of those beings, and his whole quest, as he's conquering and destroying planets and creating minions and all that stuff, he's got this quest to collect the anti-life equation, where he can undo and recreate the reality of the universe. And what that anti-life equation looks like has been showcased in a couple of different comics. I think most recently and most powerfully is Deceased.
Hmm.
In Deceased, Darkseid gets the anti-life equation. Everyone, it gets sent to Earth in the form of digital signal. So you got your cell phone, you were able to connect your phone, you saw it on TV, it downloaded it from those devices to you, and you became a zombie and started destroying and killing needlessly. And so he made a whole collection of super zombies, and I mean that specifically because if
Right.
you were a super powered person, say like Wonder Woman,
Uh-huh.
you had your same abilities. And so it is very decimative, and
Mhm.
it is fantastic. Deceased in that regard showcases just how powerful he can be, particularly if he can reach his goal,
Yeah.
which is getting that anti-life equation. So that's huge. That's a
Yeah.
big deal. Definitely recommend that series. There's actually like the main story arc, then like a sequel and a couple of side story bits for that. The whole collection for Deceased is so worth the read, particularly if you like zombies.
Can't stand them, but
Yeah,
sounds cool.
yeah.
All right. My number two, I picked strongest. So
Hmm.
straight up physical strength.
Yeah,
And I chose Bane for this one.
yeah,
Uh, e-
yeah.
Especially like the comic version, super juiced up on Venom. Uh,
Hmm.
Not the Dark Knight Bane, which is certainly formidable.
Totally. Or and especially
Yeah,
not the older 90s movies
no.
one where he's like controlled by Ivy and just this like
Yeah,
brainless thug.
Brian, yeah, not brainless thug. The Bane who's actually very intelligent and manipulative, but also super powerful, juiced up on Venom. So
Yeah,
that is my number two, physical strength and Bane.
I
Yes.
love it. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to go and see like who is comic book Bane, there's like several other like comics more recent than this where Bane really is focused and highlighted, mostly in DC, in Batman comics, because that's mainly who he faces. But Batman Nightfall from years ago now,
Yeah.
this is the moment where Bane is introduced, has a story arc. It's a bigger read. It's a bigger story.
Oh
But
yeah,
this is
three
this,
books. They're like that big.
yeah. But Batman Nightfall, we have
Yes.
the birth of him essentially. Actually, I think we do see that he gets born in that one, and then he
I
grows
think
up, and
so.
that whole story arc. Um, but it's the moment where he breaks Batman's back, and that's
Yes.
there. That's a very famous, iconic thing, constantly referenced in other stories,
Yep.
and it's crazy. I mean, like the theory of this that he had was, I'm going to wear Batman down, and so I'm going to make a huge prison break in from Arkham,
Hmm.
and so he sends everybody out from Arkham. They're all running
Yeah.
loose. And Batman's like, I can't have everybody out at the same time. That's totally unmanageable.
Oh
So
yeah.
he bends over backwards, doesn't sleep, constantly getting hurt and beaten up, doesn't take care of himself over and over and over again to go and defeat all of these other villains.
Hmm.
Bane, on the other hand, is just sitting back watching the whole thing.
Right.
And what he's trying to do is not only like kick back and just enjoying those laurels, but also study Batman,
Yes.
understand his fighting tactics, really just step back and just watch what is his strike patterns, all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Then when he goes and faces him, Batman's exhausted. Batman is beaten up. He's torn down. He's in the worst shape that he could be at.
Yep.
Then Bane, as relaxed, as full of energy, as full of health as he can be, goes in and just destroys him, breaks his back, climbs on top of a building, gets everybody's in the city's attention, throws Batman off of said building and be like, this is your hero. I have defeated him. I own Gotham now. And it's pretty much the case. Like, that is the most boss thing that any DC villain has done in the scope of like that nemesis level villain, like someone against Batman. Like, that's cool. Yeah, that's one of the greatest villains, for sure, and that's very deserving of its spot there.
Oh yes.
Again, that's Nightfall. Batman Nightfall is that story arc, so definitely one for you guys to check out. Oh man. Okay, so my number 2. Oh. Okay, so we're going with the Anti-Monitor here.
Ooh, yes.
So the Anti-Monitor is one of the children of the creators of the DC's universe. And the DC universe's like creation story is pretty messed up, really. And I'll dive into that in my number 1. But Anti-Monitor can pretty much recreate reality as he sees fit, which is already, boom, really powerful. He can resurrect himself, meaning you can't really beat him down, and that's a big deal. And he sees that he doesn't really like the multiverse. And in the Crisis of Infinite Earths story arc, he is the big bad. And it ends up really, in some ways, them all losing, the multiverse getting destroyed, and then we have one cohesive timeline for a while until it like branches out again as comics expanded. But I mean, essentially, like, DC Comics writers were like, our multiverse is getting too big, it's too crazy, it's too wild, we need to rein this in a little bit. So let's get them a character who's so powerful, so destructive, that he can wink out realities and meld the best of whatever realities we wanted to keep in our storylines, and make it so he can create a new reality that goes forward in that way. That is tremendous power. I think another character who has like similar cosmic capability has been deemed the like reason why the New 52 breaks continuity from the earlier stuff, was Dr. Manhattan. And he's not on this list because he is, generally speaking, a good guy. From Watchmen, and I'm just like, that this is Dr. Manhattan times a couple. And that's where the Anti-Monitor is. His brother Monitor is generally seen as kind of almost a good guy, sort of, but Anti-Monitor,
but he doesn't get involved.
And Anti-Monitor, no, he's the opposite. He gets involved and he destroys realities. So that is my number 2. And that's number 2, everybody. That is
all right. Well, for my number 1, I went with just straight up most evil.
Most evil.
And for most evil, I had to pick Joker.
Nice.
Okay. And the biggest reason that Joker, in my opinion, is the most evil is because he makes it personal.
Yeah.
He's not your big cosmic being. Wink, everyone's gone. Everyone there is dead. That's very sad.
But like, we never connected with anybody as a story. It's hard to, But
Joker, he can casually be like, oh, I need this house for my crazy plan. Kill everyone in the house.
Yeah.
That's personal. That's
a pretty big deal.
And it's in your face too. He'll just go in there and he's like, hi, and stab you and stuff. Right? And he's very personal in his attacks on Batman. Killing Joke is one of the best examples.
Yes.
Just to open the door, he shot Barbara to affect Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
Just straight up. That was the only reason
Hmm.
He didn't even finish killing her. That wasn't the point.
Didn't matter to him.
Didn't
Yeah.
matter to him. He wouldn't have shot if Jim Gordon opened the door. He probably would have knocked him out or something, and
Yeah.
then went to
Used
find
it to control the situation. Yeah.
right. But it probably didn't matter if it was Barbara or some other friend or some other family member. Oh, you're not Jim Gordon? Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just so in your face, personal, and freaky, and just doesn't care. All he
Hmm.
cares about is continuing his battle with Batman.
Yeah.
That's all he cares about. He just wants to one up Batman, just wants to cause him pain and stress.
Hmm.
That's it. There's nothing else to his world. If that's not evil, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So,
Um, there are just so many great Joker stories out there. As you had mentioned, um, with the Killing Joke, huge. That is the go-to one. Another one that I think is like a really good one to go to is The Man Who Laughs.
mhm,
That one kind of has a little bit of some of the retelling of some of his original story arc
yeah.
bits that we had. Joker's been around pretty much the whole time. He
Oh
like
yeah.
7 or 8 issues into Detective Comics, he shows up. Like he's a very quick to appear um character, and the exact number I don't really remember, but I have like one of those like collections of the very first Detective Comics, and it's in that first volume.
Ooh.
So it's the very it's just a collection, nothing fancy, but
Well, it's still
yeah.
fun.
It's totally fun. But he's been around forever, and
Yeah.
he has done some incredibly iconic things. Other things, the death in the
Death
family,
in the Family. Yep.
where
Jason Todd.
yep, Jason Todd.
Yep.
Then there's like in the New 52, Death of the Family, which is a whole other
Mhm.
story. And he pretty much like collects everybody, says, I know your secret
Uh-huh.
identity. I don't even care. Look, I just defeated
Right.
everybody, and I'm
Puts
doing
them
this for
all
the kids.
around a table. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Like
that
it's
one's freaky.
terrifying.
Yeah.
And then another one that I think is just huge is Endgame, where he decides, I'm gonna kind of pull out the stops and I'm actually gonna fight you, Batman. And he essentially does win, where they both like disappear for a while, and Commissioner Gordon becomes Batman for like a
Uh-huh.
year in comics, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
And like that's a huge thing. Recently with Punchline,
Joker War.
the Joker War is huge.
Mhm.
Just before that, we had him versus Riddler and the War of Jokes and Riddles. Like he's going to stick around. He will always be there
Oh yeah,
because he is one of the greatest DC comic villains, and
definitely.
that's perfect. Oh, what a great answer. Um, okay, back to my number one.
Here we go.
Here we
Dun, dun,
go. The
dun.
biggest, greatest, most powerful being, I'm going to say, is Perpetua, who is essentially the god of the DC universe. The not necessarily as the like benevolent being who's like over everything, but someone who essentially gets fueled off of like the controversy and chaos of the reality, was so dangerous and detrimental that they like built a wall around reality. And if you ever seen Green Lanterns where they end up and they hit like that wall, there is literally like a wall at the end of the universe, and
Okay.
this is to shut out Perpetua. Well, when that gets
Huh.
cracked because of Dark Knight, or Dark Knight's metal gets cracked, Perpetua essentially escapes, sets up things for Dark Knight's death metal, um, where she like at a like kind of like, let's go and make something more powerful. She goes and makes Lex Luthor a pretty much a divinity scale being. and
Scary.
super scary, super scary. Like make Lex Luthor as cunning and crafty as he can be, and times that.
Right?
Pretty much has Batman Who Laughs, who is a cosmic nuisance, as her hound for most of her time, and
Wow.
essentially she is so powerful that she wins the entire Justice League, the entire universe. Everybody pretty much goes at it, and they pretty much like they have to sacrifice like all of their energies and powers to help kind of make a cosmic Wonder Woman, which is like the coolest thing ever, to be able to go head to head against her, as well as the Batman Who Laughs, who kind of ascends and does defeat other things with this. Like there's a whole, everyone's like beating everyone in this, and it gets really messy at the end. But she is essentially, you know, like billions and billions and billions of years old, had to get trapped from the source wall, the edge of the universe, in order to be able to keep reality safe from her. And when she's just like, man, I'm done with the universe, she starts going out and she's like destroys the multiverse as well. Like we've got the Anti-Monitor who goes and does something similar. Also, it's her, that's her child. The Anti-Monitor, monitor them, her kids. She also has the Dark Multiverse, which is a whole multiverse that is like the size of the regular multiverse, just evil and tragic. And like it's just crazy, absolutely crazy. Dark Knight's metal, Dark Knight's death metal, those are the things. And her victory slash defeat slash like all of those things, how that actually ends up, which is, it is honestly, it's a little confusing. It is what sets up the new future for comics that started out like a couple of months ago.
Like the future state, or
the future state came out, and how the multiverse functions, how it will continue to function in the future, is based off of this battle. So the multiverse pretty much got destroyed. All the realities, everything else kind of broke out, and then the multiverse kind of like reborn from this. So Perpetua is probably less known because it's from a story arc that's relatively newer, and it's thus hasn't had a lot of time to have that build up, that mythos. Right. But it is the thing that is channeling how DC Comics are going to be moving forward since that future state period. The reason why they stopped all the main titles and they did future state for a couple of months and then they moved on back to the future regular things is because of the fight that they had with Perpetua. So like this story arc, it shifted the future of DC.
Wow.
So that's why it's my number one. Perpetua is my number one greatest villain of all time.
That's a valid answer. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, there are so many other characters we could bring up, so many other ways we could have termed and deemed greatest. Joseph, I absolutely love your list, how you broke out specific details. I think that's super smart. I kind of focused around all those big baddie cosmic level beings, and I think that there was some goodness and fun over there. So yeah, that was really fun.
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much. And again, if you guys enjoyed this, think you guys have like different opinions or ideas than us, like put those in the comments. We'd love to hear ideas. This is like really a place to like celebrate being nerdy, and you can totally have a different opinion, and that's totally valid. These are things that we come together and put together. And it was kind of like, oh, does this one go on the list? Does this one not go on the list? I'm like, oh, like Necron, the Black Lantern, creating a whole zombie horde of the Justice League. and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's huge. That's really interesting.
Right?
Is it big enough? Is it not? And I had to like go like, does this go on the list or not? And that was like other things were like, yeah, if you're like, yeah, you know, like Necron, why didn't you put him there? Duh, isn't that obvious? Like, great, add it on, put it on your list. We'd love to hear your thoughts again. And our thoughts are valid, your thoughts are valid. Let's kind of just celebrate being nerds together.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you enjoyed
Love
this
it.
video, please consider subscribing. That would be awesome to have you join in on future videos where we're going to be delivering fun things like this in the future.
Share it with your friends, get their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Who
pass
are
this
your
forward.
buddies? Who are your buddies' top 10 evil villains?
Yeah. Debate with them and tell us as well. You know how that goes.
Right?
That's perfect. You can find more Nerd Morning content at nerdmorning.com/links. Also, you can find at Nerd Morning on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and more. So check out all of those spaces to be able to find more Nerd Morning content. Thank you all again. Joseph, thank you so much.
Always. Love it.
And we'll catch you all next time for another video.